Xbox versus PlayStation has been one of the biggest debates in gaming history. But who actually is better? I have bought a console from each generation released over the last 20 years to test and see what made them succeed and also fail. Because between you and I think there's a clear winner that you may not even realize.
But first, we need to have a little bit of a history lesson. Think of this as Ben's prequels to the console wars that don't include Jar Jar Binks, awful CGI, and also George Lucas.
Oh, there it is. There's my name. It's another check for daddy.
Gaming has changed the lives of millions around the world, whether it's through losing yourself in an incredible virtual world, socializing with your friends, or just escaping reality for a period of time. However, the massively ambitious and breathtaking worlds we explore today didn't always look like this. Gaming as we know it began in October 1958 when a physicist created the world's first game. Fast forward to the 1990s and you see the beginnings of companies such as Blizzard, Rare, Konami, and PlayStation. People who would eventually bring us some of the greatest games ever made. Everything all began in 1994 with the PlayStation, also known as the PS1. This first released in Japan and then later into European and US markets.
Now, I've never actually seen a PlayStation 1 in person. Now, my older brothers did own PlayStation 1s, but I was way too little to have ever seen one. Those things had long left the house before I was even a child, because they're like 10, 15 years older than me. I was this mistake child that came right at the end.
Ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
But this is all about to change. We're about to see one right now. The unboxing experience is really similar to the PS2. Wow, it's much larger than I thought it would be. But one thing that's really cool about the PS1 is it's very mechanical. You know, you've got really traditional buttons, the way things open up, got your like old-fashioned clicky power button. It's pretty old school in how it works. It's really nice.
At its launch, the PlayStation was regarded as the most advanced home video console on the market and warranted a price of $299. At the time, this was the equivalent of spending $600 of today's money. Through the utilization of the CD-ROM and 3D gaming, alongside an array of enticing exclusive games, Sony saw immediate success with the PlayStation. The advanced graphics and systems allowed for developers to expand their horizons and create more demanding video games that had never been seen before. The PS1 was discontinued in March 2006 after 12 years of production and sold over 102 million units, which was unbelievable considering that this was Sony's first console, and for comparison, the original Xbox only sold 24 million units. Many critics and gamers saw the PS1 as the height of gaming, but in the year 2000, 6 years after the PlayStation's release, Sony launched the PS2, which would become the top-selling console of all time.
If you were born in the early 2000s like me, it sort of takes you a while to realize that Xbox didn't even exist until a year and a half after the PS2's original release. Sony had been in the market for around 7 years before Xbox even showed up. Now, what I've got here is I've actually gone out and purchased a PS2. Now, I haven't seen a PS2 since I was probably like 6 or 7 years old. It's been ages, decades since I last saw one. Now, when I was a kid, I actually had the Slim. My brother had the big chubby one, which looked like this.
In November 2001, Microsoft debuted their flagship home video game console, the Xbox. Now, Microsoft was already involved in the video game industry through its PC gaming studios at the time, Age of Empire, Microsoft Flight Simulator, all that type of stuff. Now, the Xbox would emulate a lot of the same features as the PlayStation. However, the most significant innovation was the inclusion of online gaming. This was kind of a game changer in the industry.
Now, for me as a kid, when I was sort of 4 or 5 years old playing on my PS2, I had no idea that online multiplayer was even a thing. I was just playing Gran Turismo and I was happy with that. But if you were slightly older, sort of a teenager in them sort of more mature years, it was revolutionary having this online aspect of the Xbox console because it unlocked a whole new social side to gaming that had never happened before, which was basically LAN gaming. You could take your Xbox over to your friend's house, play Halo on a Friday night and have like all your mates around with their Xboxes and their own TVs, and it almost gave like the non-super cool trendy kids at school their own type of house party that they were actually invited to. It was crazy. Another really interesting factor about the PS2 is how this was kind of the beginning of the console wars. GTA San Andreas was an exclusive on the PlayStation 2 console in 2004, and it didn't release on the Xbox original until sort of 2005, a year or so after its initial launch. And this was sort of that start of that exclusivity battle that we see a lot today.
Sony continually tried to innovate with a variety of new features and functionality with the PS2. The inclusion of the built-in DVD DVD player was quite significant at the time due to DVD players being very expensive, scarce, and also rapidly becoming a must-have accessory for people in their homes. Another feature that would make and break Sony over the coming years was the inclusion of backwards compatibility, allowing PlayStation 1 owners to play all of their games on their new console with an overall improved experience. Despite Xbox only having just entered the market, both consoles were at the forefront of the industry with state-of-the-art specifications. But the Xbox outclassed the PS2 in horsepower with a more powerful CPU and GPU. This just proves that specs don't mean sales, which is something I think we've forgotten about in the modern day era. We're so obsessed about teraflops and performance that the console wars have become more about specs rather than the actual video games, and we've seen this a lot with the Xbox Series S. That's gotten so much hate for being the weaker console of the new generation, but actually it's very affordable and capable for its price points. And it's pretty clear the real reason why the PS2 sold so many units is down to the video games. The PS2 had over 4,000 games that you could buy and play, and that's forgetting all about the PS1 games that were also available with the backwards compatibility. Xbox only had 1,000 games. It's a huge difference. Determined to hit the market before PlayStation, Xbox released their next generation console, the Xbox 360, a year before the PlayStation 3 in November 2005. Xbox capitalized on PlayStation's success and included features such as backwards compatibility to entice all of its customers to join the new generation. A year later, in November 2006, Sony would release the PlayStation 3 at a very controversial price of $599. During this era, Sony began to take many risks and get a little bit arrogant with its customers, as it pursued a complete takeover of the home gaming world. In addition to this, because of their interest with competing with home computers, Sony outfitted the PS3 with very bulky and costly hardware, which was a large factor behind its extortionate price. During this generation, for the very first time, I switched over from PlayStation over to the Xbox 360. Now, I initially had the PlayStation 3 for a couple of years, but as I wanted to expand into multiplayer gaming as I got a little bit older, all of my friends were on the Xbox, and also the 360 accommodated multiplayer gaming much better. It had a fantastic party chat system where you didn't have to be playing the exact same game, whereas on the PS3, although it was free, you didn't have to pay for like Xbox Live Gold, you had to be within the same game lobby in order to talk with one another. It was a complete nightmare and really clunky. Furthermore, because the Xbox 360 was much cheaper and had a lot of different variations for your price point, it meant a lot more people at school actually had one over the super expensive PlayStation 3 during that period, so the likelihood of having a friend to play with was significantly higher. I think the Xbox 360 was the clear winner over the PS3. The exclusives were so strong on the Xbox 360. Forza Motorsports 3 and 4, incredible racing games, Gears of War was at its height of the franchise, Halo 3, and also Halo Reach, and let's not forget the Fable series, Left 4 Dead, and yes, even GTA. Xbox beat Sony at their own game and got GTA 4 Episodes of Liberty City as a timed exclusive on the Xbox 360.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
It's very easy to say, oh, but Ben, what about the red ring of death? They did fix the issue, and a lot of people forget that the PS3 had the yellow light of death, which was a very similar fault. However, at least the Xbox 360 was safe. The PSN network hack in 2011 was devastating for the company. 77 million accounts were compromised, leaking banking information and personal data. This really tarnished what was already a not-so-perfect generation for Sony and allowed Xbox to close out this generation on a high. With this momentum carrying into the final few years and for the highly anticipated Xbox 720. E3 2013, the moment we seen the PS4 and the Xbox One for the very first time. But we also saw the birth of all of the memes. Man, this was a funny event.
TV and movies? TV. Xbox. Watch TV. 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 TV.
The PS4 and the Xbox One was really when the console wars started to heat up and get pretty toxic.
I wish you good fortune in the wars to come.
This period of gaming was really out of control with fanboys and also rivalry. Like seriously, at school, some kids wouldn't talk to each other because one was a PlayStation player, other one was an Xbox. But you have to admit that the PlayStation cleaned up and really put the Xbox to shame. Sony learned from its past mistakes and underpriced the Xbox One by $100. The PlayStation 4 also reintroduced a form of backwards compatibility through that PS Now emulation game streaming type service, whereas Xbox took it completely away. No Xbox 360 games were supported or Xbox original titles. Microsoft even had outrageous ideas around always online and no pre-owned games. Both companies took a different approach to their console. The Xbox One was regarded as an all-round console capable of gaming and entertainment, including music and television. It also had heavy Kinect integration, which divided quite a lot of fans.
Check this out. Whoa, Xbox, record that.
The PlayStation, however, was marketed as a specialized video game console for the players. It was also more powerful and most games ran better on the PS4, actually hitting the promised 1080p HD resolution rather than the 900p on the Xbox One. Sony also introduced a paid-for PS Plus membership, very similar to Xbox Live Gold. This really did help improve the overall online multiplayer and party chat system aspect of the console, but it did upset a lot of fans because it was no longer free like on the PS3. Also, throughout this generation, for the first time, we've seen mid-cycle refreshes that were more than just cheap, slim variations, but actually more powerful and capable systems. Sony made the first move with the PS4 Pro in 2016, allowing gamers to hit 4K 30 FPS in most AAA games, and Microsoft soon followed with the Xbox One X a year later. This was a really interesting concept that kept pushing the boundaries and possibilities for developers with brand new hardware. This also combined with Sony's interest in virtual reality, gave players new experiences that were previously only exclusive to the top-tier PC master race. By the end of this generation, both companies had learned from their past mistakes and were beginning to overhaul the gaming industry in a very positive way. Xbox's new leadership from Phil Spencer really turned the brand around with bringing back backwards compatibility, scrapping the Kinect, introducing Xbox Studios, and also Xbox Game Pass. I seriously believe that Xbox was one false move away from no longer existing during this dark period because they really had alienated a lot of their loyal fans. This then brings us to the current generation with both the PlayStation 5 and also the Xbox Series X. Now, the history is currently being written for how this generation will play out and who will ultimately win. I think Microsoft owes a lot to the Xbox Series S. In a time of economic uncertainty, the Series S has provided a safe bet for gamers. It's more than powerful enough and it doesn't break the bank, being almost half the price of these other consoles here. Also, this little beast of a console has consistently been in stock since its launch, and I think it'll be amazing how many sales will have amassed just by this console slowly ticking away over the last few years while the shelves have been empty for the PS5 and Series X. That being said, who is the real winner of the ongoing console war? And the answer for that is you, the gamer. The real MVP who has came out of this 20-year console war is the gamer who wants to immerse themselves in a fascinating world, strategize with their friends after a long day, or escape reality to truly be themselves. Now it's up to you to choose your side. If you want to see me unbox the craziest Xboxes ever made, check out this video, and for some of the coolest and rarest PlayStations, check out this video next.